Hey everybody, Justin White here, and you're about to listen to episode 14 of Power Forward. Our guest is Shelby Elias, CEO of United Wholesale Lending. From a young age, Shelby has had an entrepreneurial spirit, from flipping go-karts and dirt bikes as a kid to opening his own business at the age of 20. Shelby has hustled for everything he's gotten. You'll find out how Shelby has found success by consistently setting goals even if they seem unattainable. We also get into Shelby's advice for finding your peak state, why he chooses to lead with his heart on his sleeve, and his thoughts on how to deal with the haters on social media. It all comes your way right now on Power Forward. The primary purpose of this podcast series is to inform, entertain, and educate. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast series do not constitute legal or other professional advice, opinions, or endorsements of any kind.
This is Power Forward.
Welcome back to Power Forward. Justin White alongside Mateen Cleaves. Mateen, how you doing, my friend?
All good, baby. Living a dream. Please don't wake me up, man.
I was waiting for it. I didn't think you were going to deliver the line there at first.
Gotta have it. I'm always living a dream.
All right, well, now we can proceed. Mateen, I'm super pumped today about this show.
Oh, yeah, you should be, man.
Today's guest, he's got a lot of energy. He's also got some swag, as the kids like to say. He's a put-together guy. He just comes across as a really well put together guy. I phrased that really poorly, but you get the drift of what I'm saying. Shelby Elias is here. He is the CEO of United Wholesale Lending, not to be confused with United Wholesale Mortgage, the name of our company. Shelby, welcome to Power Forward.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Now, we got to start off right there. The name of your company, very similar to the name of this company. That's not by accident, right?
I mean, very similar to the number one wholesale company in the nation. So, hey, if it sounds a little bit the same, then it's all good for me.
When you think about that, just in business or in life, looking to successful people or successful businesses and then trying to implement pieces of what they do into your own business, how do you think that can help people achieve success of their own?
Yeah. It's really a shortcut for success, right? If you're modeling people that are more successful than you are, and I tell people all the time, I'm like, be very cautious of who you're listening to. Only listen to people that are experts in the subject, because everyone will chime in. Everybody gives you their 2 cents, right? But only listen to the people that are actually doing what you want to do. So I listen a lot to Matt, Matt Ishbia. It's like, look, this guy he's got it going on. So if I'm modeling him and I can, have some brand recognition there for my small business, it's going to help me succeed. I mean, I know there ain't a person in UWM's headquarters that doesn't know who I am, right? So I'm just modeling after people that are already there where I want to be, and using that influence to help myself grow and take those shortcuts.
All right. All advice is not good advice, right?
Exactly.
and imitation, as they say, is the sincerest form of flattery. I mean, you look at sports, for example. You get a team like the Golden State Warriors. They get a couple of superstars together. They win a couple of championships. Next thing you know, all these other teams are trying to do it. So it's no secret, teams, organizations, businesses, that everyone flocks to success, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And if you're going to do it, why not, follow someone who's doing it the right way? I mean, that only makes sense.
Shelby, a little bit about you. You are based in Sacramento, California.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been in this line of work? What's your backstory?
So I started at one of the largest lenders at the time in the nation. I was 20 years old. I was in college, and I had a mentor, older guy. His name was Cody Stein. And I met him in college, and he said, hey, there's a really good opportunity for mortgages, and I'll bring you on, but you need to graduate first. And man, I was blowing this guy up like, man, you got to let me in. I'm seeing all these guys make all this money. I want to drop out of college. He's like, you can't drop out of college. And one day he literally called me and said, okay, this ship's going to end up sinking. So I would feel bad if you didn't have the opportunity to be able to capitalize on this. So he told me, quit your job at Cheesecake Factory, switch your major from business to communications so you can graduate faster, and let's fast track this. So I went to work for him, and honestly, it all came down to hard work, right? There was guys that were making a ton of money, and then they go on vacation to Europe for a month, and they're taking off early to go wine tasting or taking 4-day weekends because they're making such good money. And for myself, I worked 7 to 7s. If I didn't hit my goal, then I worked a 7 to 7 on Saturday. So I just had more opportunities. And I'm 20 years old. I rose to number 3 in that company. And by the time they shut their doors, I was on top, and everybody's looking at me like, well, what are you going to do? So naturally, not knowing anything, I said, I'm going to start my own company.
Wow.
And I just started, catapulted into entrepreneurship, probably at the worst time to open a mortgage company ever. And I just got better every day, and it worked.
So it seems like you had that mentality, the first guy in and the last guy to leave.
Yep, that's it.
Wow.
Showing up day after day. I remember going so early to work that our scan badges didn't work yet. So I'm sleeping in my car, just waiting for the door to be able to open because we had inbound calls coming in. And I knew if I got 10 more in the morning and 10 more at night, then I'm going to have a better chance at being more successful.
All right, so hard work, right?
Yeah.
Getting in early, staying late. I mean, to become an entrepreneur, like you said, a business owner at a young age like that, when most people don't know what the heck they want to do in life, what does it take?
Well, it takes a lot, I'll tell you that. I mean, man, when I first opened my first office, I had to wear a lot of hats. I mean, and so I was studying different, angles. It was like, okay, how to use QuickBooks. I had to figure that out. So I had to learn that system. That took a lot of time. And then it was like, okay, what licenses? What are the regulations? Is there a rule book? Like, how do I even know I'm doing this stuff right? So now I'm having to research every single piece and just slowly get better and better. And that gray line got further and further away, which gave me more comfort. But I mean, it's a lot of work. It was a lot of doing things that other people are not willing to do, right? And knowing and seeing into the future and saying, you know what, I believe in this mission, and if I'm down to put in the work, something that I tell people all the time is nothing good comes from, being comfortable. You have to be uncomfortable. Everything that you want is right on the side of what you don't want to do. So if things really suck, then you're getting there, right? And it sucked for a long time, and now it's pretty sweet.
That's crazy, man. And I hope you're listening, because everybody always say, well, how do you become successful? And it's like not a secret.
Yeah.
If you want to be successful, people, you have to work harder than everybody else. And
Right.
I love that mentality. Now, you grew up in a small town and you really wasn't around a lot of successful people, or
Yeah.
didn't have that outlet. A lot of people, they're around successful people, so it's like, okay, I want to be like him.
Yeah.
You didn't have that. So where did this come from?
Man, that is a great question, because I remember, so I grew up in a really small town. I didn't know what a mentor was. I didn't even know I wanted to go to college. I had no idea. I didn't take my SATs. It just kind of happened, right? So when I got to college, that's when, to me, college was crazy. It was like, I can't even believe I even got here, So when I showed up, I started to see other people that had like successful, parents and stuff. It's like, oh, that guy? His dad owns this. That when you're younger, you hear a lot of that chatter going around.
Yeah.
And then that's when I truly started to get inspired, and I'm like, man, I want that. I want this. And I was just dreaming. So the dreams started to come where it was like, okay, I'm going to meet a millionaire. Like that was a big thing for me. I was like, I can't wait to meet a millionaire. And I go around and I'm meeting different people. I'm like, oh, his dad's a millionaire. I want to meet that guy. And then it just slowly started to become more of a reality. I remember in the fraternity when we had to pick our mentor, right? We're at this fraternity event, and there's all these alumni. And they said, okay, what do you want to do? All the guys are saying, well, I want to be in law enforcement. I want to be a contractor. And so different guys are coming up. They're like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I I want to be rich. And everybody laughed. And I'm like, why are you laughing? Like, dude, I don't even know what I'm even doing in college, right? Like, and that was it. And they all laughed and they said, hey, this is the guy that you want to talk to. And I remember when he gave me his business card that day, right? I was such a dreamer. He gave me his card and I felt like, you know, it was Willy Wonka's chocolate ticket. And it was a business card, right? But I mean, I'm a young kid. I'm like 17 years old. And he gave me that business card and I was like, this is the ticket to me being successful right here.
Wow.
And I blew that guy up. And he literally is like, dude, look, like, I'm not really your mentor. This is kind of a gag to get you to join the fraternity. Why you keep calling me? And I just was super persistent. And then we became friends. And he really molded me.
Learning from the people who have done it, right? It goes back to that.
Yeah.
I mean, following those people, you know, learning from them. I mean, where does that come into play? You know, being willing to learn and really soak things in. Like you said, when you first started your business, you tried to absorb as much as you could, and obviously there was a lot to take in.
Yeah, I still do that every day, literally every single day. I'm looking at people that are successful in certain areas. And I'm an open book, and I myself am chasing getting better every day, right? So I'm taking little pieces and I'm going to work. And I get a lot of that through podcasts, right? And I'm learning about all kinds of things like, you know, how do I have a better relationship with my wife? How do I make sure that I have a good kid? How do I make sure that I'm molding, you know, my son, or he's, you know, becoming the man that I want him to be? Or inspiration, motivation. I mean, I listen to Ed Milet, I listen to Andy Frisella, Grant Cardone, and everyone I don't agree 100%, but I'm taking pieces and applying them and getting better.
You know, it's funny, Justin. I met this guy in Atlantic City, and when I first met him, it was passion. And that's the first thing I thought about. I heard him speak. It was passion. I saw him today earlier. It was passion. You know, I love that. Can you talk a little bit about how important it is to have passion if you want to be successful in whatever it is that you're doing?
Yeah. So this is something I learned from Tony Robbins, right? And it's called getting into your peak state, right? Mm-hmm. Last night, we went out. We went to dinner. We had some drinks. I'm on, California time, right? So we woke up this morning. I'm tired, but I'm getting myself into my peak state. So I was like, okay, how am I going to get there? Turned on a podcast, turned it on in my hotel room. I took a shower. I went through my morning routine, right? I know what gets me into that zone. And I wake up, I'm not in that zone. I'm tired. You know, I'm not looking forward to it. But then once I start to fire myself up, and I know how to do that, I have to do that every day. And then that's where the passion comes from. Now I'm in my peak state. I'm in my zone. I'm laser focused on what outcome that I want to have. And, you know, another piece of that too is doing things that you love.
Yeah.
Right? You got to do what you love. If there's a certain piece of your business that you hate doing, don't do it. Focus on your strengths. Don't focus on your weaknesses, you know? And I focus on my strengths. I love everything that I do. I love the people that I surround myself with. If there's people that I don't, I cut them out. And when I saw my man Mateen walking through the hall, I'm like, that's my guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's funny, you keep mentioning podcasts, so let's make sure we get that power forward in that rotation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's get in that rotation.
Good call. You also talked about your routine and how you get yourself into that zone where you can be at your peak, at your best. What is, on a day-to-day basis, the routine for you to get yourself to that spot?
So my morning routine actually starts the night before. And it's because I know that in order for me to have a successful day, I need to be prepared for that day. So right before I go to bed, I'm writing down a list of every single thing that I need to do, and I'm making sure that my calendar is dialed in, okay? And so then that way when I wake up in the morning, I usually drink some water because, you know, I know that being hydrated is going to help me, you know, get my day going. Brush my teeth, do everything like that, right? Then I want to spend some time journaling for my son because, you know, that's really important. I want to be able to remember how I was feeling. You know, I would love for him to be able to reflect back on that. I'm sure I would like to reflect back on that. So I do some journaling. It kind of gets my brain going. And then depending on what type of mood that I'm in, I want to turn on a podcast that's going to help me get into that zone. So if it's a day off and I need to work out, or I'm going to get motivated for the gym, then I'm listening to a certain type of podcast. If I am going to work, I got business meetings. If I'm doing a real estate meeting or something like that, I usually listen to Grant Cardone or somebody that's real estate focused. If I'm doing a speaking engagement, right? I'm trying to choose something that's going to stimulate my mind and fire me up, and then hopefully get my talk track where it needs to be. And at that point, I usually go to the gym. And if I can't go to the gym, then I do some sort of a home exercise. We have a spin bike, and I do that quite a bit, or stairs at my house. And at that point, I'm ready. I know that I can attack the day. The very last thing that I do before I even leave the house is I identify 3 things that will make sure that I win the day. So those 3 items, oftentimes I try to knock those off the list before I even leave.
Wow.
Or it's on the drive to work, because a lot of them are phone conversations, right? Sometimes you got to deliver bad news you don't really want to, and I'm making sure that I handle all of that before I even hit the office. So that's how I do it.
Man, game planning. So, okay. So, because podcasts get you going. So we have people listening that it might be music, or it might be reading a motivational quote. What's your advice? Does it have to be a podcast, or is it what works for that certain person?
Yeah, I mean, so I have this discussion a lot with my employees about music. They're like, yeah, well, music, motivates me. And I've given a lot of them a challenge where I said, look, how about you give up music? I understand you love it, but for 1 week, I want you to not listen to music, and every time you would have normally turned on some music, listen to a podcast. And then you let me know what happens at the end of the week. They're always blown away. So I'd like to agree and say, well, maybe it's reading, but it's not. You need to be listening to people who are doing it. Right? If Matt Ishbia had a podcast and I got to listen to the way that he's thinking every single day, my life's going to change. So I'm all in on podcast, and hopefully somebody's listening to this and like, wow, maybe I'm from a small town. I thought just like he did, and hey, I'm going through the trenches right now, and it's really tough opening up my own mortgage brokerage, and I'm having to learn all these things. But then just knowing that, hey, stick with it, push through. It's gonna suck. But what you really want is right on the other side, and they get there. So if they're listening to this and that causes them to push through, I think that it's the podcast, and you can get the same outcome if you had a face-to-face with that individual.
Yeah.
But I mean, geez, I know that Tony Robbins is not going to be calling me anytime soon. So I listen to him.
And you mentioned. You keep talking about being from a small town.
Yeah.
I'm from a small town, Flint, Michigan. And it was a certain mentality that I had, man. It was a certain chip on my shoulder that I had being from a small town. I felt I just had to outwork everybody. I felt I had to be 10 times better than everybody. So can you just talk about the mentality that you have to have being from a small town and you can make it? Why not you guys?
Yeah. I think that you almost have a leg up. When the cards are stacked against you, a lot of people, there's 2 different mindsets that you can have, and mindset to me is everything. You can either let that hold you down, or you can use that as motivation, because you think somebody's coming from LA, or they're living in Bel Air and they're hanging out. Where's their drive? Why? My parents are going to pass away and I'm going to become a multimillionaire anyways. Right? Now the guy from the small town, he has that motivation, that drive, that ability to say, you know what, I could do this. I've listened to these people and they've done it, and it gives you that drive. You talk about that chip, that's what I always had. And it was like, you know what, I can do this. Other people have done it, and I did it a lot when I was growing up with saving money.
Okay.
Right? I was one of the poorest ones out of all of my friends. But then I started to spend my money a little bit different, and then I became the wealthiest one. Wow. And so when other people were doing other things, I started to see that, and I'm like, wow, I got more money than all my friends. But how is that possible? My parents have the least amount of money. Why do I have more than them? And so I started to really understand at a very young age that it doesn't have anything to do with where you came from or nothing, you know? And
Right.
if you get in the right mindset, anything's possible.
I love it.
What role did your parents play in that, in kind of instilling that belief in you at an early age?
Oh my gosh. So we're going there. Here we go. Man, when I grew up, so we would live paycheck to paycheck, right? So my mom really played a huge role in that. And what she did was she refused to let me think that just because she didn't have the money to be able to buy me those Jordans, that I couldn't have them. She came up with creative opportunities for me to be able to earn the money myself. So we'd go to garage sales. I would negotiate different items.
Now, what age are you?
I mean, I'm talking, I was probably like 8 to 14.
You're Gary V before there was Gary V.
Oh, man. And then so it moved from, I flipped go-karts all the way through like elementary school. I would just find good deals on go-karts, hit it with some steel wool, repaint it, and resell it. And as a kid, I had a leg up because who's going to say no to a little kid? Like,
Right.
I'm negotiating 200 extra bucks. You're going to just, even though it's worth that extra 200, you're going to sell it to me. And then $200 to me was a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
So now I'm flipping this go-kart, making a $300 profit, $400 profit. So it went go-karts, dirt bikes. I flipped cars in high school. And then when the downturn hit, I started flipping homes.
Wow. Impressive, man. That's big time stuff, Justin. Wow.
Amazing.
I want to ask you, Shelby, about goal setting too. You know, because you kind of touched on this a little bit before, and kind of your routine and how you start your day even before you head into the office. But the importance of goal setting, not just in the short term, like looking at what you got to do that day, but also in the long term.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
So, not to sound cliche, but it's crazy that when you actually tell yourself something, how it ends up working out, you know? So, it's just, it's crazy. I'm huge with goals. And every time I set a goal for my team and my company, I'm literally the only one that believes that could ever even happen. And even in myself, I'm like, I wonder, shoot, that'd be really cool if we hit it. But then I keep saying it and I keep reiterating it. And then we become closer and closer. Then when they start to get a glimpse of like, I think we could do this. And then everything changes. And I think that even if you think that you can't hit a specific goal, just keep telling yourself that that's your goal. That's your goal. And I honestly don't know how to explain it, but the world will work it out. And it happens every single time. I mean, my whole life, that's how it's been. You know, it was like I used to get motivated by cars, and I wanted some really cool cars at a really young age. And I started talking about it, and then sure enough, it worked. And houses and neighborhoods. There's this neighborhood in Sacramento called the Fabulous 40s. Mm-hmm. It's right by the college. I drove by that neighborhood every day going to Sac State. And I always told myself, one day I'm going to buy a house in the Fab 40s. This is the most exclusive neighborhood in Sac. This is like where Ronald Reagan lived there. The governor lives there. It's very exclusive. Nobody even sells there. And it had always been a goal of mine. And I bought a house there about 4 years ago. And I door knocked for it and made it a reality. It's crazy. And I mean, I've moved on since then. And it's just unreal how things come together.
Man, if you build it, it will come. You know, people always believe in yourself. You always got to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, who else will? And I'm a big believer in, some people are afraid to set goals. And I say, your will to win must be greater than your fear of losing. So I think about this. What advice do you have for that person that's afraid to set a goal?
Yeah. Well, one piece of advice is anytime anything makes you afraid, you're on the right track, because nothing good comes from being comfortable. It's just the average mindset is, we weren't put on this earth to be average, right?
Right.
Nobody should that should never be where anyone wants to be. So if it makes you nervous, then you got to set it. And then once you start setting some goals, now you don't always have to set the crazy goal first, right? Just set an achievable goal. right? And sometimes I tell some of my staff, I'm like, look, if you're stuck in a spot and you're feeling down, right? Let's just resort to something that you can win on, right? So a couple of my guys like to work out. I'm like, look, 50 push-ups, that's a pretty darn good goal. If you could do 50 push-ups. So one of my guys, Justin, I'm like, man, Justin, every time you feel like you can't do something, just do 50 push-ups and then go back and try to do it again. Because him winning, having that small win, it starts to change his mindset. And now all of a sudden he's able to crush some of his other goals. So I think that you start off with something that you can achieve, set some big goals too, and things start to align.
Now, I've been around some very successful coaches in my life. And everything about you says coach. And can you talk about, how important it is as a leader, as a CEO of your company, how important coaching is with your team members that work under you?
Yeah. It is. It's everything. I mean, and honestly, I learned a lot from Matt Ishbia. I watch his style, and I learn from that, and I bring that back. And within my team, we do the same team meetings. We set our goals, and everybody. It's important within your organization to understand who responds to what, right? And I bet that's a lot like some coaches, right? There's some guys you can just yell at and that'll pump them up, and some guys that'll shut them down. Yeah. So, I have to be very careful on understanding deeply, what their triggers are. And I do, and I focus on that, and I praise that. But I think it's extremely important to understand that as a coach, and then also really getting to know every person on a way deeper level, right? It's about really connecting. So showing them that you actually care, and that you love them. I tell a lot of my guys, I'll send them private messages. I'm like, man, I just want to let you know that I love you and I'm proud of you. And that's to my employees.
So as a CEO, that's not above you to tell an employee that you love them and you care about them.
Yep. I want them to know that I actually love them and I actually care. And that means everything,
I mean, it's amazing too what can happen when someone knows that you care about them, right? I mean, how much more invested they become in you, in your mission, your business, right?
Yeah. So another thing to go along with that love thing is, I've been saying this recently, and it sounds super soft, but it's real. And when I get upset with something or someone, I tell them how, like, well, hey, it hurt my feelings. And when I'm actually telling them that it hurt my feelings, because it did. It's like, dude, I hurt my feelings that you didn't care about this, or you didn't put our company first, or you didn't come to me first. It hurt my feelings. And just using those words, you hurt my feelings, I get a completely different reaction from them. And now they open up and they're like, I'm really sorry. Or, hey, I didn't want that to happen. And it's putting feelings and emotions into it. It's a game changer.
Yeah. And it hurt them because you care about them. It's like a parent. If you care about them, we all hate it to let our parents down. And for our leaders and CEOs that are listening to this podcast, don't be afraid to let your team members know that you care about them. You're not above that. And if they know you care about them, then they'll run through a brick wall for you.
What about, a lot of it sounds like comes down to just being a good person, being a good person, surrounding yourself with good people.
Yep.
In a business where you are client facing, how does that factor in? Just having your clients know that you're a good guy and that your business is filled with good people.
I think that is another great topic to touch on. And where you can do that is we do a lot of video work. So within our organization, we're always doing video because I want to be able to see my clients. I want them to see me. I want them to look at my emotions and to tell that I actually care about their future as a homeowner, right? I'm not here for this one transaction. I'm here to guide you through the process. So something that we just implemented within our company is we FaceTime. Whenever I text a client and I see the little blue text, I know they have an iPhone. So my next text is usually, it's like, hey, great to meet you, da-da-da. And then I see that it's blue. And then I say, hey, do you mind if I FaceTime you? And then we FaceTime. And now it's like a face-to-face meeting. I know a lot of originators, they know that, man, if I can get them face-to-face, they're going to be my client. But it's hard to get people face-to-face. Well, why are we not using FaceTime on our phone? Once I started FaceTiming, it's kind of an awkward reaction at first. But then by the end of the conversation, like, I really thank you for FaceTiming me, because it puts the guard down. It lets them know that you're a good person and that you actually care. And it's everything.
I got to tell this story right quick, because I started a foundation, and we were trying to have these different functions to raise money, and I was losing money. So I went to my manager and I said, face to face, I would rather sit down in front of these people and let them feel my passion, let them feel my heartbeat, let them see how passionate I am about helping my community. And it worked. Yeah. It worked. We lost so much money trying to put together these extravagant, fundraisers. But when I sat down face to face with people and they felt my passion and it worked for me. So I'm a big believer in being face to face with people.
Yeah. It's great.
And I'm glad you brought up the FaceTiming, because I want to ask you about leveraging social media, because you're big. You're into the videos. You're constantly posting. It's a big part, obviously, of your strategy. Why is that the case, and how has it helped you since you started becoming more and more reliant on social media and posting online?
So what I'm recognizing is that everything is based on influence in today's society. So we're influenced with every decision that we make. And for me, it's important for me to build a brand that carries influence. And, what I don't like is that, everybody's treated on the same playing field, right? To where it's like, I don't really know what you own or what your experience is, but on social media, now I can go ahead and show them that and say, hey, I flipped over 100 homes. I own 18 rental properties. You can trust me, right? So at that point, when I started to realize that building a brand and building influence was really where everything was going, that's when I know I had to get the right people on my team. So we have content creators, we have videographers, we have photo guys, we have a copywriter who writes all the copy. What I'd really like is to get somebody that's really good at telling the story, because I think that people love to hear the story. They want to know what the background is. So once we started to implement all of this into our business, our realtor partners started to see that, hey, we could trust these guys. Look at the people that they're working with. If the top 10 agents in Sacramento are using Shelby for their loan production, I know that I could trust him too. So it started to work on all fronts. And, really I learned a lot about myself through that process, and things that maybe I need to get better at, maybe things that I do very well, and things that I love, And so the more and more I do it, the more of a future that I see in it. And it's led to speaking engagements. Now I'm comfortable speaking on stage. In front of the camera, I'm extremely comfortable. And it's exploded my personal production in my business.
Oh, and he's dynamic on stage. So people, trust me, if you ever have an opportunity to check him out, man, you won't be disappointed. Now, the social media, you talked about it, and you are one of the guys that you make it work for you. Yeah. Now, when you jump out in social media, you open yourself up. So how do you deal with the negative comments that come with social media?
Wow, that's tough. I'll tell you what. Man, I started on this social media journey about 2 years ago, and like literally 2 months in, I get this DM from this girl that just shut me down. She shut me down so hard, I didn't even want to log back in ever. Like, I was crushed, and I was posting something about like success, right? And she posted something that she's like, money's not everything, and you should focus more on your family or something. And I'm like, whoa, you don't even know me.
Right,
what are you talking about? Right? And I'm like, dude, I have my own nonprofit. My family means everything to me. And I like, dude, you just tore my soul out. And it stopped me in my tracks. I didn't want to post nothing else out there. And what I started to learn was, well, so when I made a comeback and I got over that, one thing that I had to remind myself was, you're never going to please everybody.
Good
right?
point. Good point.
So don't worry. There'll always be haters. There's always going to be some people that don't feel you. They're not vibing with it. But the ones that do are so all for it, right? They are on your team, and they will live and die by you. And you start to create your own tribe. And there's no better feeling than knowing that you are having a positive impact on someone else's life. And then, so for every one message, I started to get 10 messages that were like, you're inspiring the crap out of me. Oh my gosh, this is so good. I needed that. And then the what you get from that is just so worth it. I mean, if you can just change the trajectory of somebody else's life and open it up, it means everything. It's the only thing that matters.
You talked earlier about the influence that your mom had on you and kind of setting the stage for you to find those opportunities when you were young. You also brought up the fact that now you have young kids of your own. I'm curious, what has fatherhood kind of taught you, both about yourself as a person, as a man, but also with relation to your business?
Well, man, being a father is the coolest thing ever. And I'm so blessed to be able to experience this. One thing that I do with my son, and it's just like me, right? It's I want him to be very personable. So we call everybody friends. So all the kids, right? I'm not molding my son to be antisocial or like, hey, that's a stranger, right? Some people would say, well, hey, don't talk to strangers. And I'm saying, it's okay, these are friends. So when my son goes to a playground, he's like, hi, friends. And he's talking to everybody, and he's just loved by so many people. I mean, we literally had his entire classroom over for his birthday party, and he got invited to every single one of their birthdays, which could be a downside for me, but everybody loves him, and they love his heart, and he's just amazing. But when it comes down to, something that, like, financially, I want to make sure that my son understands how to, make his own money and not be held down by, how old you are, right? Celebrities see this a lot, right? It's like, oh, well, Kendall Jenner is the first billionaire, and everybody hates on her, right? That's just because she's a Kardashian. No, she worked harder than everyone else.
She had to. At
a really young age. So she just understood that it doesn't matter how old I am. Like, I can do this on my own. So that's what I want to really give to my kids is I want them to work for it. I want them to understand, if you want something, this is how we're going to figure out. I'll give you some ideas, and I'll support you, but you got to do this on your own. And I think that that's super valuable.
If they're anything like their dad, they're going to be fixing up go-karts and dirt bikes pretty soon, right?
Yeah.
You talked about coming from humble beginnings and now achieving success. Have you been able to kind of pay it back, to your parents? You talked about your mom specifically. Have there been opportunities for you to now kind of show your appreciation for what they did for you earlier in your life?
Yeah. I recently just bought my mom a house that's right by my home.
What a feeling.
In Loomis.
What a feeling.
And I mean, that's a pretty awesome, accomplishment. And my younger brothers too, they're on the come up, and one of my brothers lives in one of the complexes that I have downtown. And I mean, they're such big staples in my life, without everything that they do for me, even though, yeah, sure, my brother lives in one of my places, but without him, I couldn't be who I am. So it's very, there's a lot of gratitude that comes along with that, and a lot of self, worth or it's a beautiful feeling, but at the same time, they put so much into me. So it's great just to be a team all the way around. We're a family.
Yes, I had an opportunity to do that I was drafted to the NBA and had an opportunity to buy my mom a house. And I tell you, it's certain feelings that you just get that's hard to explain. I won a national championship, one of the best feelings in the world. I had a son. I mean, it don't get no better than that. You know, you having a son. And when I bought my mom a house, I tell you, I mean, the feeling that sent through my body, you know, coming from humble beginnings and watching my mother work at General Motors and grind every day and to sit back and let her go out and pick the house of choice. And so that feeling there, Shelby and Justin, I'm telling you, that was one of the best feelings I ever had in my life.
Mm-hmm. Making it more than about you, right? Like you said, Shelby, it's all about the team. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. It's been awesome listening to you and finding out some of the things that make you tick. And hey, we know that you're just getting started, right? Because you're not slowing down anytime soon. So we look forward to seeing all that's to come still for you.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. It's always a good time.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing your story, Shelby. We appreciate it. And thank you for listening. To make sure you never miss an episode of Power Forward, subscribe wherever you find your podcasts and leave us a review. And look for another new episode coming your way 2 weeks from now, featuring more inspirational stories of success. I'm Justin White. We'll see you next time on Power Forward.